Hello and welcome to this session of the Ticketing Summit. I'm Eric Rozenberg, CEO of SecuTix. And in this session, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Mark Turner from Microcom Corporation. Mark has been working in ticketing and software for about 30 years, and he is the specialist of RFID. So this session is going to be about RFID. What is it? How does it work? How to implement it? So Mark, thank you for taking the time to be with us on the Ticketing Summit.
Thank you for including me, Eric. I appreciate it.
So I always ask this, we're hearing about RFID. What is RFID? Where does it come from to start with so that we can really start with the basics about RFID?
Sure. RFID simply means radio frequency identification. And the technology uses a sensor. A lot of times it's just a simple RFID reader. In fact, most cell phones now include them. And a chip that's embedded in a ticket or a wristband. And the two communicate and pass back information similar to what a barcode can do, but with many more features.
Awesome. And sorry, go ahead.
Basically, RFID, there's two versions. You have the near field communication, NFC, you might hear the term, or the ultra high frequency, UHF. And the main difference is that one is designed for very close range communication, usually used for payment systems, money, admissions, things like that. And the other one is a long range system that's used more for tracking people as they move through a facility or crowd control and things like that. So basically RFID, there's two flavors. One, it's a very short range, and one is a very long range.
Is it that technology that is used when I take my credit card and come close to the terminal and it's automatically debited?
Yes, that's all near field communication, and it's designed to be only used at a very short range so that there's no security issues, because most of those are transferring money or they're using an admission ticket or something like that. Versus the long range is not used for financial transactions, but is more used to just track the flow of people through a facility.
I understand, and I'm sure we're going to get into some concrete example with that. How long has it been in existence, and who invented it? When did it start?
Well, radio frequency has been around, for probably since World War II. A lot of it was developed for purposes of that, and the technology then became more brought into the marketplace for other purposes. And one of the main uses now is just communicating information quickly between devices that's secured and accurate.
And when you say that to monitor how people are walking in the venue, why would you want to know what people are doing in the venue? And I know I'm asking very basic question. I'm playing the devil's advocate, but I really want to bring everybody at the same level about RFID.
Sure. Sure. A typical use of that would be maybe in a shopping facility where they have beacons that can track where people are moving around to see what areas are most interesting. Also, museums could use the same technology to track and see which attractions people are spending the most time at, and also to track to see if there's a capacity of a particular area that they're exceeding. They can track how many people are moving in and out and adjust their schedule so that they move the crowd around the facility more evenly.
And how can I incorporate RFID into ticketing? With my ticket, with the mobile phone, with the band? How does that work?
Well, there would both be included. The RFID would be given to the consumer probably on a ticket or a wristband or a credential, and that would be what they have as identifying them, and then there would be a device reading that RFID. And most cell phones now have that technology already built in, so that if you have an Android phone, for example, if you get it near an RFID chip, it's going to read that chip and give you the information that's included in it.
So, and I know that exists, that you can have the ticket on your phone and it's actually activated with the technology when you're getting closer to the venue. Is that also the use of it?
That could be, there's different ways of doing it. Typically, the phone would be used by the person who is controlling the admission and reading the ticket, so that each ticket has an RFID chip in it, and that could identify a number of things beyond what a barcode could identify, and that information then can be scanned and then used to control admission. Or it could be used for a payment system where they're collecting money throughout the facility from perhaps a wristband that's been, given a $20 value, and each time they use it, that money is debited out of that wristband account.
Okay, so I go to a festival, I have my wristband, and it's actually the way I'm paying, so I don't carry cash anymore.
Right. And that also allows the facility to collect all the cash or put payments on credit card at one point, and then they don't have a cash distribution problem throughout the entire facility.
Awesome. So can you maybe give us some concrete example with different vertical? You mentioned museum, we just spoke about festival, maybe stadium, theater, performing arts center. What are the different example that you can share with us so we can really visualize how RFID is used in our ticketing world?
Sure. A lot of those could include, just the admission to the facility could be one of the values that's stored in the RFID chip. And then that would be at the front gate being used. And then throughout the facility, they could be using it for payments. And in fact, the wristband or the ticket could have two types of chips. So you could do the long range and track how people are moving through the facility, and the short range for their payments at a gift shop or a food stand or something like that. So it would give you the ability to monitor where people are going. And in a museum, that would be a chance to see which exhibits are gaining the most attention. At a festival, they can control how people are coming, even over a multi-day, wristband, things like that. One application that we were involved in is for the INTIX Association, where for the past couple of years, we've had RFID chips in the credential that people get around their neck, so that as they go through the facility, vendors can have their phones collect the information. So instead of getting a business card from somebody, they could just tap their phone on the credential and get all that person's information, phone, email, directly through the INTIX organization from their registration. And it also allowed INTIX to track people going into each session, so they could get more accurate statistics on how many people were attending the different sessions throughout the day. So it was great for data collection for them, and also ease of use for the exhibitors. And then, of course, for the people attending the show, if they ran out of business cards, all they had to do was let someone read their badge, and it had all the information there for them.
Right. Now you mentioned about tracking session. What happens if I go into a session and then let's say I have to make a call, so I go out and I come back again? Would the device identify me, or will I be counted twice?
No, you would identify you because your chip is attached to a specific ID. So if you were to come in and go in that example, that would just record the fact that you were there, and it would still show just one person having attended that session, even if you came in and out 2 or 3 times. One application that also can play into is for facilities that have timed events where they have specific tours that take place every half hour. That information can also be encoded into the chip, so it's easier for them to keep track and schedule.
That's awesome. So if I come I have to be there at 10 a.m., obviously come there on time, but if I come at noon, it's too late and I won't be able to get in.
Right. And all of that information can be stored in the chip and easily tracked and collected by the device.
So in theory, you can have thousands of people in using using the technology for one event.
Yes.
And how does it work then to set up into a venue? Do you need any special hardware? How do you integrate that with the ticketing system? How does that work?
Definitely, there's numerous components. First and foremost, the ticketing software system has to support the features. There has to be a way to put information into the RFID chips and then take that information out and use it. So the different components would be the software system having features. Then you'd also need some sort of device that's encoding the chip. And that could be a ticket printer or another type of encoding device. It's very typical for, like the ticket printers that we sell, RFID as a feature, so that right at the box office, when you're printing the ticket, those tickets can have chips embedded in them, and you encode them right at the point of sale as you're selling them. But then that also mentions an additional component that the tickets themselves have to have the chips put in at the time that the tickets are manufactured. So your typical thermal ticket stock that you use in a box office would have that chip embedded into the paper when it's made, and then it would run through your thermal ticket printer and have information printed at the point of sale. So those different components, there has to be the software controlling the system, there has to be some device encoding the chip, and then there has to be another device that's reading the chip when it's being used, whether it's being used for admission or for a payment.
Understood. So I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about the movie Minority Report. I don't know if you saw that movie. So yes. I'm walking in the corridor, and suddenly I have specific ad targeted to me and my taste. The question becomes, what about privacy? Because we're all concerned about privacy. You mentioned there's a near frequency and longer frequency, and the near frequencies for the payment. What about my data? What about my information? What about even the financial information, and how secure is it?
Sure, that's definitely a very secure technology. I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing it more in credit cards, because it gives additional features above the magstripe technology that they were using before. The information that's in the RFID chip itself is minimal in terms of what it provides if it's read. And a lot of times the actual data is stored in a database that the software system is providing itself. So when it's issuing tickets, a lot of that information about how the ticket was paid for would not be stored on the ticket. There isn't any information that would allow people to hack into it and get your credit card information or anything like that. And one advantage of RFID tickets and wristbands are that they would be disposable. So instead of having an app loaded on your phone where you may have more concerns about what the app is doing, or did the app get removed after the event, now you have a disposable paper ticket or wristband so that after you've used it, you can throw it away and you know that there's no further exposure for security.
Understood. So this is what a different application than that we can be using in a venue. And how do you implement it if, let's say, you have no RFID technology today and you want to implement that? So for all of us in the ticketing world, what are the benefits that we can justify for that, and how do we implement it, and how long does it take to get the whole system in place?
Well, definitely you would want to start with a particular need. Are you trying to process payments throughout the facility quickly and efficiently, or do you have a need to track the number of people in given areas of the facility? I guess the first thing would be, what is the real goal to be accomplished? Mm-hmm. And then making sure that the software you're using to sell your tickets or to control the crowd flow has the ability to integrate with RFID. And then the hardware and software itself is fairly minimal. It's a ticket printer similar to what people probably already have in their box office, but a newer one with the RFID feature included. And then sourcing the media, the ticket stock or the wristbands that they're using now would not have RFID chips in them. So there would be a process of figuring out exactly what chip would be needed, how much information would need to be stored for their application, and then get that type of chip built into the type of ticket that they're using. So the lead time for implementing a system could be as short as 1 or 2 months, but there definitely is a process that has to go through to get the stock, get the software, and get the printers all integrated. But it could be a fairly minimal setup. And then for a lot of places, reading the information off of the RFID chip could be done by their own phones. For example, with the INTIX application, all the exhibitors are using their own phone. They download an app, and then as people come to their booth, they just touch their phone to the person's name badge, and they receive that information from INTIX for their phone number and email and contact information. So there's no additional hardware needed, and that's one of the advantages of RFID, is that in most modern phones, it's already built in.
So we're talking about what everything's going on now with obviously the COVID-19, the physical distancing, and when we're going to go back to venues. Do you see any immediate application of RFID that we haven't thought about in the past, and that is now something that we should be using?
I think 2 areas. One would be the payments, because it's a contactless payment that's done electronically. There's no cash exchange. There's no change being handed back and forth. So there's less chance of something being transmitted from one person to another. And then with the long range, by setting up beacons within a facility, it'd be very easy for the management to see if one area is becoming overcrowded, and where then, social distancing couldn't be possible because they know there's just physically too many people going into one particular exhibit area, and they might open up a different area to try and have the crowd spread out more evenly. So there's different ways that they would be able to implement that. Very interesting.
And then if you take your crystal ball and look 5-10 years down the road, with the emergence of technologies like obviously RFID, but also artificial intelligence, where do you see the world going, and where do you see the application of RFID?
Well, I think RFID will continue to expand because in some ways it's making that piece of paper or that wristband a smart ticket and making it part of the Internet of Things, because now devices can interact with it. The chip can be written to and read from more than once. So as someone moves throughout a facility, information can be added to their ticket based on the experiences that they've had in the facility, and then future experiences with other exhibits can be tailored to what they've already seen. So there could be a very interactive process to the experience for people, and also just having the crowd control so that you have easier social distancing.
Absolutely. And do you see any interaction as well with the CRM system? Because we always telling that we want to know better our patrons and what their taste and what they're doing. So as I understand, RFID can help collecting any type of data. So do you have any concrete example of how one of your customer has integrated that with their marketing and their CRM?
Well, not for us in the ticketing industry that we've seen at this point, but one great example that I know is being used is in the retail area, where they're setting up beacons so that they can track people as they move through the store to see which areas do attract the most interest and which areas are not, drawing customers into them. So it's definitely something that's useful for tracking the flow of people through a facility to see where their interests lie.
Got it. I know there's an application as well in the trade show industry, and see where people are going, and especially when you are a trade show organizer and people said nobody came to my booth, and actually you can track people and actually show that there were a lot of people going there and see where they were going during the whole trade show. So if you can, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not using RFID today, so if you can summarize for me what are the benefits and what are the application I can be using in my venue.
Okay. Well, again, basically we get back to the idea that there's two types of RFID. So the one type would be used for the payment systems and the admission ticket entry point, where the ticket is being, tapped onto the device, for the information transfer at very close range. And all of those benefits would be for any facility that's using an admission ticket and tracking people wanting to get them into the facility quickly, or at a trade show when they're collecting information, like the name and address instead of exchanging a business card. And then the long range is designed to track people as they move through the facilities. So any facility that has a need for crowd control or an interest to see which parts of the facility are attracting the most interest, those are going to be the two main applications, I think. And as facilities determine what their needs are, if they have a need to process payments at many different locations throughout the facility, then RFID provides a great opportunity to allow them to make that ticket a value debit ticket or a wristband and collect the money at each location without cash being exchanged or cash handling being taken place throughout the entire facility.
Awesome. Thank you. Now you're in a very good position to see what are new technologies coming up today. Do you see anything, maybe not directly linked to RFID, but any new technology that you're observing and you're thinking, that is something that is going to impact our ticketing industry?
Well, I think as things expand, and partially because of what we're going through now with the virus, I think that kiosks and self-service devices are going to become even more prevalent in the industry. And those devices then could be issuing tickets and wristbands with RFID chips in them with a value that has a cash value that can be used throughout the facility, but it would be a self-service item where there's less interaction between people and less chance of exposure or transferring a virus.
So that's going to impact the way box office are working?
It could. I would expect to see more kiosks and self-service devices at any location where they can allow the person to place their own order and not have to have another human being there interacting and taking the order.
Awesome. And just to conclude in conversation and looking into the future, once again, what is your thought of the future in technology and RFID or not, but what's coming and what should we be already learning about so that we're not caught off guard when this new technology is coming in our industry?
Well, along with the RFID, I think that more wireless technology is being implemented, and when 5G becomes more widely used, I think that's going to be another important step in allowing people to communicate more quickly and have their devices online. And that'll make it even more important for the ticket or the wristband to be a smart device itself, have a chip in it that can be read and written to, so that becomes part of the overall system and isn't just a piece of paper that can't be really interacted with.
And the 5G, you think, is going to improve the streaming part of a show or of a venue?
Well, and also just having the ability to have more devices online and making it more reliable throughout the facility.
No personal opinion on the impact on health of the 5G? Because we're reading a lot of different things about that.
I don't at this point. It's new technology. Hopefully we'll get those things worked out before it becomes too widely utilized. And if there are issues, hopefully they'll be identified. But I think that process of that technology continuing to grow and evolve will continue, and hopefully in a safe way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Any last thought that you want to share with us, with anybody in the ticketing industry about RFID, what we should be thinking about, or something I haven't asked you yet today?
No, I think we covered most of the area. I mean, it's a relatively simple technology that's growing in a lot of different ways, and now that it's on almost everybody's credit card, people are becoming more familiar with it. And having it on the ticket and on the wristband, I think, will provide a lot of benefits to the admissions industry.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with us on the Ticketing Summit and for sharing your insights. And looking forward to seeing you face-to-face at INTIX in the future.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. And hopefully maybe we'll run into each other just around town here.
Yes, exactly.